What's up, guys? Scott Martin here, Scott Martin Challenge. I'm going to bring you guys along on a new little adventure today. You know, I'm right outside of Clewiston here, and a friend of mine owns this lake. It's, I don't know, maybe a 40 or 50 acre lake. And we're going to go around and fish it, see what's up. I've got access to it. We're going to try a bunch of different lures and see what's in here. And I'm going to show you guys how I approach a new body of water. Even though this is just a small little lake, the same rules apply on how I'm going to fish it, what I'm going to look for, and the different types of lure choices. So hopefully we'll catch a couple big ones along the way, and hopefully I'll teach you a few things on fishing new bodies of water. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assess the weather. You know, today we've got windy conditions, overcast skies. And so that's going to break down a few things for me. To me, the fish should be, it's pretty warm out, you see I have shorts on. The fish should be pretty aggressive. They should be roaming around the banks, feeding on bait. And so a moving bait is going to be one of my first choices. And you know, there's lots of different things that I could throw. A live target, square bill crankbait would be a good choice. I have an impact jig here with a little swim bait on the back of it. I have a chatterbait, a spinner bait, a topwater lure, things like that. So when I pull up to a new body of water like we are here, I'm not gonna get out a worm, I'm not gonna get out a shaky head, I'm not gonna fish real slow. I'm gonna put the trolling motor on, I'm gonna go around and fish a lot of the structure that I see on the shoreline. I'm gonna watch my depth finders, and I'm gonna pay attention to what's out here in the middle of this lake as well. And again, fish moving baits. A day like today, moving baits should be key. Once I start finding some areas that are holding fish, then I can go low and slow with a plastic worm or flip or whatever it may be. So I'm gonna start off with an impact jig and a little chatterbait, and we'll see what happens. All right, so the first thing I've noticed here, there's a little point here behind us. And I was assuming that maybe it was deep water going all the way across, but we're in 3 foot of water. So it's an underwater ridge that runs out across this lake here. And I see lots of grass. You can see the depth finder here. I've got my Panoptics on, I can see little ridges and stuff. So I'm gonna follow this little ridge on out across this lake here. Again, throwing this chatterbait and swimming a swim jig. And just cover some water. Just try to, again, learn as much as I can about what's in this lake.
Evinrude is driven by the demand of your engine. With over 100 years of life on the water, Evinrude offers a full line of premier engine oils. To learn more, check out an Evinrude dealer near you.
You know, another thing you want to assess, we've assessed the weather. You know, it's cloudy conditions, it's windy. You know, we're looking obviously at the visible cover, but one of the things you really need to know is what type of bait fish are in this lake. You know, is it a heavy bluegill population? Is it a heavy shad population? And you know, right now I'm throwing a little chatterbait, and I have, again, a swim jig tied on, and we're fishing white colors, which is gonna imitate a shad or some type of shad type fish. But if there's not a lot of shad in here, it's a lot of bluegill. We see a lot of bluegill around the banks. I might wanna go to a brown or a green pumpkin color. You've gotta always assess, keep a really good eye out for activity. You know, you might see a fish breaking, you might see a ball of shad out in the open. You know, you really got to just, when you get on a new body of water, it just really use all your senses, really listen, watch, and pay attention to every little thing, learn as much as you can in a short amount of time. You know, I'm going down this bank here. We went across the middle, didn't catch anything, but we know where that ridge is. And now I'm going down this shoreline, again, just throwing moving baits. And there's lots of good things to flip here, but I'm not gonna waste a lot of time flipping. Again, this is a pretty small lake. I want to assess what's in this lake before I really slow down and flip and spend a lot of time in an area. So I'm bypassing all this, looks great for flipping, but I'm remembering where this is, okay? And I'm gonna actually drop a waypoint. We'll drop a waypoint right here, because this bank looks really good. We're at 7, 8, 9 foot of water here, lots of overgrown grass and little bushes and stuff. Be a fantastic place to flip. But again, I want to learn as much as I can about this lake right now. So I'm just remembering this bank, and I'm gonna still keep covering water. I can always come back and flip later. So I've gone about halfway around this lake now and hadn't had many bites on this chatterbait. So I'm gonna switch up and try to show them something a little different. And kind of work through a whole bunch of different baits here. This is an impact jig here, one of my favorite little swim jigs. They make great flipping jigs, but this little swim jig is awesome. It's got this special little weed guard right here that attaches to your hook, pushes out of the way when obviously a fish bites it. But that's a really good swim jig. And I just matched it up. Again, just a little, kind of a shad pattern, a little chartreuse in it. This water's a little green, a little dark, so I think that chartreuse will be good. Let's see what happens. Seems like this edge over here is probably the deepest water that I've seen so far. We're at 12 foot against this bank. And if you notice, I'm throwing parallel to the bank. I'm not sitting throwing straight at it, I'm throwing down the side of it. this wind is blowing in on this bank right here. And I don't want to waste a lot of time casting this way. I want to cast down that way and pick off those little points of grass that are sticking out. This swim jig comes right through that stuff really good. Oh, he jumped off. He smoked that swimming jig. And see how that weed guard will move out of the way, which is really good. But I just didn't get a good hook set in him. He hit me, and I really didn't even know he had a fish on. He hit so fast and took off towards me. It was hard to drive that hook. You know, I like a heavy action rod when I'm throwing a swim jig, or you know, a heavy action rod with a little bit of tip. This is an Akuma 7'6" what I call the swim bait frog rod. And it's a really good rod. You want a little bit extra backbone when you're dealing with stuff like this, so you can drive those hooks into those fish when they hit quick like that. Now what's unique about this little spot here, you know, most of the cover around this lake has been little maiden cane patches and little bushes and stuff. And we have little cattail islands that stick out. Totally different type of cover. So this is what you're really going to want to focus on and see if these fish are around this type of cover. And if they are, then find more of this around the lake. It's a totally different look, a little bit off the bank, different type of cover. Sometimes that is all the difference. There's one, oh, a little tiny one. Little one, but again, now that's just a little bass right there. But again, a different type of cover. You know, we've been going down the bank fishing that maiden cane, come to a place that the cattails are off the bank and catch a fish. So again, I'm going to remember that. A mistake a lot of people make when you're fishing a new body of water is that they waste too much time and get a little sidetracked. And what I mean by that is, this looks great to flip, and I am going to come back and flip this. But again, I'm staying on track, and I want to just assess this entire lake as quick as I can. And that's a lot of the times what I do in practice in these FLW tournaments is I try to just assess what's around me and see where all the good stuff is. And then I can come back and flip this later on, or I can go to that lay down log that I found on the other side and flip it. I'm going to just cover as much water as I can, get a good overall idea of what's going on in this lake, then come back and fine tune different places around this lake. But if you, every 5 minutes, if you're getting sidetracked and spending a lot of time doing things, you're going to waste a lot of valuable time learning that new body of water. Another thing that's really useful when you're fishing any body of water, and I've been using the Garmin Panoptics for almost a year and a half now, and that's what this is here. This is a forward shooting sonar. And I'm looking at 9 foot of water below us, but out in front of us here, the direction the trolling motor is pointing, I can see some high spots and a drop off. So I know that right out here is a little bit of a high spot out there about, from what it says, about 45 feet. And I'll turn that trolling motor, watch this, turn the trolling motor, and there's a little high spot, and there's a little drop off on the back side of that. So that would be a great place. And there's even a fish right there, that's a fish. See that little dot moving? That's a fish of some sort. So there's some fish right out here on this little ridge. You know, again, we're way offshore. Nothing that you can see visible, but that Garmin Panoptics allows me to see what's out there in front of me. You know, we've gone around pretty much the entire part of the lake here. We haven't caught much. You know, I've never fished this lake before. Not really sure of the population, but again, this tip's not about how many fish we're going to catch. It's about showing you how I approach a new body of water. Now that I've gone around the lake and I've got a pretty good assessment, I'm going to start really mixing it up a little bit. Like, we got a nice little patch of grass here in front of me. And you know, this is a perfect place, you know, to throw this little bluegill, little live target bluegill. A little mat of grass like that ought to get jacked right there. Little one. He's in that bush. Got him. Just another little one. You know, again, I don't know anything about this lake. I don't know what the population is, but that's number 2. And, you know, in those little bushes, little flowery bush. So, you know, I know a lot of places around this lake where there's little overhanging bushes like that. And even that other side that we started on had a lot deeper water. We're only in really 3 or 4 foot of water right here. So now I can go back to some of those places. I bet we can catch a big old fish. Just a small one, but we're learning something. I've had a lot of people admire my truck over the last year and a half, but I think the cows are really digging it too. Little one. Nice. A little better all the way over here by the truck. So far we've had a few bites on moving baits. We've had a few bites flipping. So I think there's several different ways to catch fish here on this lake, but maybe flipping might catch a little bit bigger fish, especially on that other side of the lake where we got a little bit more water depth. I think that might be the key. So we'll work our way back around to that other side over there and get on some of those deep banks that I saved those waypoints on. Flip this little creature bait in there and see what happens.
Engel Coolers has designed a line of heavy-duty coolers that are built for more than just keeping things cold. Fishing, tailgating, backpack coolers, and overland fridge freezers. Engel is a legend in reliability. Check us out at an Engel Cooler retailer near you.
This is one of those little patches of grass that stuck out a little bit farther, had a little bit of depth on it. We're 12 foot of water right here. There ought to be a fish in there. He took my whole cricket. We got attacked. Pitched it right in there and he snatched it right off. You usually don't miss them with the trocar, but we missed that one. Little balls of grass like that are magnets for bass to hide up under, especially if you can find the ones with a little bit of a cavern underneath it. Got a little bush here with some grass all blown up in it. That is just really good looking stuff. There's a bite. Oh, golly, that was a big one, dude. Ugh! Dang! That was a good fish. Golly! Exactly where he's supposed to be. That thing ran me all the way out here. You know, we've caught some little fish so far in this pond, but that was a good fish right there. Man, I cannot believe I missed him. I missed one in this patch of grass right here, and I'm not sure how big that one was, but that was a big fish. Dang it. But a little bit of a pattern here. These little bushes, especially ones with little flowers on them. We caught a fish on the other side of the lake in a bush with flowers in it. So again, paying attention to the type of cover you're fishing is very important. Another small one, but there was a big one back there. But you know, we've gone around this lake now, we've learned a little bit. Hadn't caught any real big ones, but again, that's not what it's about. It's about learning a lake and then going back and fine-tuning some stuff. We noticed that this bank right here, as we came down through here earlier, had some good depth on it, had a lot of good cover to flip. I didn't flip it at first. I went down through with the moving baits, and I've basically decided that, unfortunately, moving baits on a day like today, for whatever reason, is not working good. I think you could do better flipping the heavy cover around this lake right now. Not a real big one, but I think you'll catch one for sure. That's pretty cool. We're learning some stuff today. You know, that's one of the reasons I love fishing so much, is because it's not an exact science. You know, you get out here on a day like today, you know, we're fishing a pond. Ponds usually are full of fish. And you get out and you think, oh man, I'm gonna throw a spinnerbait, I'm gonna throw a chatterbait, I'm gonna throw a swim jig, I'm gonna just catch 100 fish doing all that. And we went around this lake and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the time of the year or whatever, we didn't really blast them. We've got more bites flipping the heavy cover around the edges. So again, be versatile. You know, try different baits, try different things. It's not an exact science. Just because you caught them on a chatterbait or a swim jig the day before doesn't mean you're gonna catch them the next day on that same technique. You gotta move around, be smart, and be versatile, and you'll catch more fish that way. And that's how tournament fishing is. You can't just pull up somewhere and say, I'm gonna catch them on this exact lure. You've gotta be versatile. Well guys, thanks for coming along with me. Hopefully I showed you a few little tips on how to approach a new body of water. Again, we learned, hopefully you learned how to kind of cover some shoreline, try different baits, pay attention to what's going on, remember some cool stuff. Don't get hung up doing one thing, because as you saw today, if I'd have just went around with a swim jig all day long, I might not have caught them all that good. I think the flipping deal, for whatever reason today, was kind of the key. But again, the key was being versatile. We covered the shoreline, but you know what? There's probably a lot of stuff out in the middle of this lake that we don't even know about. And Garmin has a brand new software that's hooked up to these units where we can go around and map this lake. And we're gonna do that. Click the link below, check this new video out, and we're gonna go around and show you 1 foot contours of this lake and show you some of the honey holes out in the middle of this thing. Thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for subscribing And do me a favor, like the video, drop us a comment, and share it. See you guys. Got my depth shading on, and I'm just gonna idle across this lake, back and forth in about 30, 40 foot.
Headline! Headline! Look, get him in!